Hi, this is Allie's Attic, and this conversation is all about Allie. So, Allie, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm 49 years young. um, I was born in Winnipeg, but my hometown is Pointe du Bois, Manitoba, which I'm sure most people haven't even heard of. It's a small hydro town, and both sets of my grandparents lived there. One of them operated the store. My other grandfather worked in the powerhouse, and my grandmother was the postmaster. And we lived there for a couple of years, and then we lived in Winnipeg for a couple of years. And then we moved to Gillam, Manitoba. My dad's an electrician, and that's where the work was, so that's where we went. Um, Growing up was difficult. I unfortunately was the victim of a lot of different types of abuse and bullying. When we moved back from Gillam to Lac du Bonnie, um, that was just as hard because same things were still going on. The abuse was still going on. I was surrounded a lot by alcohol and drugs, and unfortunately, started hanging out with the wrong crowd and making bad decisions. My mom and dad divorced, and we moved to Russell, Manitoba. Well, Inglis for a little while because we have relatives there, and then Russell, Manitoba, and the bullying continued and my rebellion continued, and I got into drugs and alcohol heavily because it numbed all the things that had happened to me in my life. So I was able to pretend that I was okay. Um, After that, I ended up getting pregnant and marrying the father of my beautiful daughter. And she's the only good thing that came out of that marriage. Unfortunately, when you get caught up in the cycle of abuse, you tend to seek out the same situations because you know how to deal with them. You know how to deal with getting hit or getting yelled at or getting called names. And although my daughter stopped me from drinking and doing drugs, I unfortunately didn't give her the best childhood because I kept choosing the wrong men. I got into radio because I talk a lot. Oh, and I also have a cold, so excuse me. But I talk a lot, and one of my cousins who was in radio thought that it would be a good idea. So I took the course and started my radio career. I worked in Winnipeg, I worked in BC, I worked in Alberta, and it came to a crashing halt when my husband, who I had been with for 16 years, decided he wanted to leave me and told me that if I wanted the marriage to work, I had to stop doing radio. So I walked away. Needless to say, I'm still divorced. So that didn't really help my marriage. And he used to make fun of me all the time about how I sounded on the radio and that I cackled like a hyena. And so I couldn't go back. So then I just started taking odd jobs. Thankfully, I had some office experience as well as radio experience. And I also taught radio at a radio broadcasting college. And one of my favorite sayings was make sure you have training in something else instead of just radio because you can be on top of the world one day and then get handed your walking papers the next day. So I started working in offices, call centers, dental, all the while bringing up my daughter and still choosing the wrong men. Then finally, one man that I did choose, who I thought was the one, was from Lac du Bonnie. And I moved back because it was close to Pointe du Bois and I still have friends out there. It was a huge mistake. He also was an alcoholic and a wanderer. And he didn't like staying put or staying with the same girl. So that kind of blew up in my face. And then I ended up with a man that I had dated when we lived in Lac du Bonnie when I was younger. And he was amazing. He was the one that introduced me to music, to Fleetwood Mac, to Billy Squier, to Led Zeppelin, to all the great, great bands out there. And we would just sit in his room and listen to music, and it was just awesome. So we got back together, and during this time, I had been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmune disease, And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's a silent disease. So a lot of people, when you tell them that you have it, don't believe you because they can't see it. But it attacks, your cells attack all the tissue around your joints. So basically, it's your body attacking your body. And it limited me greatly. I couldn't work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I couldn't sit long enough. I couldn't stand long enough. I would swell. I would, get in pain. I couldn't do anything. They tried me on a whole bunch of different drugs. The drugs that I'm on now, is one of them is called methotrexate, which back in the day, they used it for leukemia patients. It's actually chemo, small dose chemo, but it still affects me. I take it on Fridays. I'm sick for the whole weekend. My eyebrows are falling out. I'm terrified my hair is going to fall out. And then living with the man that I was with 4 months into our relationship, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer and was told that he had 3 months to live. So it was either run away or stay with him. And I chose to stay with him and nurse him until his last day. He was told 3 months, but one of my friends had introduced me to cannabinoid oil and told me that it really helps in fighting cancer as well as keeping his pH level up high because cancer cannot grow in a high pH level. So we started that process and he actually lived for a year. But he ultimately did pass away. And I've been single since, which is now 2 years. I came running home to Mummy and I'm still living with Mummy. And I was kind of at loose ends. I tried working, but like I said, the chemo does take a lot out of me and really limits me. And the drugs that I'm on are amazing. It's unbelievable. Really stop me from retaining information and concentrating for any length of time. The doctor that I have now is amazing, and he's getting me off of a lot of the drugs that I was on because I was overprescribed, which is a normal thing, unfortunately, nowadays. So I urge anybody, if you're on any kind of drugs and you think they're too much, try to find a doctor that's understanding. I don't know what else to tell you. I was tired of just sitting around doing nothing, and I wanted to do something. And I thought about going back to radio, but then I thought about this. And I talked it over with my mom, and I said, how about we start a webpage where we have conversations with stars, musicians, actors, authors, magicians, comedians, anything, because everybody has a story, and I want to hear their story. And that's why I'm doing it. Now I'm getting emotional.
Okay. You have a daughter also, I understand. Well, obviously I know it because I'm your mom.
Yes.
Tell me what changes her and her children made in your life.
I'm going to cry, so I don't know if I can do this. I have a beautiful 30-year-old daughter.
Take a breath.
I'm trying. Who is amazing. She's an amazing mom. She's way better than I was. I have a 12-year-old grandson, and I have an 11-year-old granddaughter. My grandson has ADHD, so that was a learning curve for all of us in the family, and it's still ongoing. So you're going to hear on my show about ADHD, about rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmune disease, about any autoimmune disease, about cancer, about all of that stuff. You're going to hear about domestic violence because it doesn't just happen to women, it happens to men. And that's why I wanted to do this. I had Susan Glukark on, and hearing her talk about her sexual abuse and her story made me realize that I am doing the right thing by getting people on and getting to hear their journey. I also want new artists on. And now people don't understand why people want to help people. It's kind of one of my faults and one of my best traits. I always want to help out anybody that I can. So not only am I fulfilling my dream by doing this, I'm hopefully fulfilling theirs. I mean, if they're actors, if they're musicians, if they're dancers, if they just play an instrument, if anything, I want them on. I want to give them a platform to be heard and hopefully discovered. Because ultimately that's why they're doing what they're doing. I also am going to be having conversations with small businesses because I know how hard it is to get a business off the ground and be successful at it. So if I can help them do that, I'm a happy girl at the end of the day. And I'm also going to have nonprofit organizations on there. I am a believer in anybody that wants to make our world a better place. You're going to find a lot of it is going to be animal rescue because that's near and dear to my heart. I had 2 rescues, both amazing dogs. Unfortunately, I no longer have them, but they were amazing. And it seems like they can tell that you rescued them. And I know that probably sounds silly, but that's just how I feel. I don't even know what else to say about myself. I'm reaching out to people constantly, asking them to come on my show because, like I said, I want to hear their journey. I want to hear how they started out and what made them successful. Or I want to hear 5 years down the road that because they came on my show as a new artist, they were discovered and now they're a star. I want to do all of that.
Okay, and Allie, you keep all of these talks with your future artists or the artists that are already following their dreams, have reached their pinnacle of success. You keep them all very casual and friendly, which I think is wonderful. It's not a scripted interview. It is you being natural, and they loosen up, and they're so natural too. I think it's a wonderful format. I know that one of the new artists that you have already interviewed has been heard and is now, her music is playing on a couple of radio stations. And I know that's your hope. I also know you're doing this with no charge to anybody. And part of our hope is that we will get sponsors or advertisers. So please, if you're listening, check out the website and give us a call if you want to put your business card up or if you want to sponsor in any way. We do have an addiction show coming up, and have an author coming up, and as she said, we want from all walks of life. We want to be able to talk to these people, see why they got into space they got into and why they're so successful, so they can give pointers out to the new people up and coming and trying to make their dream.
And that's why whenever I interview anybody, I always ask them if they have any advice to give any stars out there that are just trying out. Any advice is good advice, whether they use it or not. At least they're hearing about it. And that's part of the reason I want to get the bigger stars like Blake Shelton, Gwen Stefani, Katy Perry. I love Katy Perry's message. Right now, we all need to band together and let our voices be heard because the world is in chaos right now, which is why I do the nonprofit, because I want to help out any nonprofit organization that I can. So my hopes in doing this is, like I said, to hear everybody's story, to keep it casual. I'm not going to interview you and ask you bullet questions. I want to hear about you. And I'm hoping that you'll keep supporting my website. I'm getting over 100 hits a day. It's a month and 1 day old. And it's doing really well. And I love all the feedback that I'm getting. I want to say thank you so much. And thank you for listening to me cry, which I'm very good at when given the moment. I wear my heart on my sleeve, as I'm told. And if you have a story that you want to tell, just reach out to me. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, and it's all under Allie's Attic. And Mom, even though this was hard, thank you for doing this.
You're very welcome.